Welcome back everyone. Today's story is not just about singing. It is about courage, pain, hope, and a moment that changed one life forever. What you are about to hear left the judges speechless, the audience in tears, and Simon Cowell completely stunned. This is the story of a young Filipina girl who walked onto the biggest stage in the world and sang a song so powerful that it shook the room and touched millions of hearts across the globe. The theater lights were bright, almost blinding. The crowd buzzed with excitement, but no one was prepared for what was about to happen. A small figure stepped onto the stage, her hands trembling slightly, her breath shallow. She looked young, almost fragile, yet there was something in her eyes that hinted at strength forged through struggle. Her name echoed softly through the microphone as she introduced herself. She was from the Philippines, a country known for music, resilience, and heart. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Over the years, he had seen thousands of singers. Talented ones, confident ones, and many who were not ready. His expression showed polite interest, but nothing more. He had no idea that in just a few minutes, his jaw would drop in complete disbelief. The girl spoke about her life quietly. She talked about growing up in a small home, about nights without electricity, about singing to escape the noise of worry and fear. Music was not just a dream for her. It was survival. It was how she helped her family forget their struggles, even if only for a moment. As she spoke, the audience grew silent. Even Simon leaned forward slightly. Then came the question, "What will you be singing today?" She took a breath. Her voice shook as she said the words "Defying Gravity." A murmur spread across the audience. That song is not easy. It is powerful, emotional, vocally demanding. Simon raised his eyebrows. This was a bold choice. Some might even say dangerous. The music began softly. For the first few seconds, her voice was gentle, controlled, almost fragile. The audience listened closely. You could hear a pin drop. Simon watched carefully, still reserved, still skeptical. But then something changed. As the melody rose, her voice grew stronger. Richer, clearer. Each note carried emotion, not just sound. It was as if every lyric came from lived experience. Pain, hope, determination. When she sang about breaking limits and rising above, it did not feel like a song. It felt like a confession. Simon's posture changed. His arms slowly uncrossed. The girl closed her eyes and let go. Her voice soared. The high notes rang through the theater with power and control that shocked everyone. Audience members looked at each other in disbelief. Some covered their mouths. Others began to cry. Simon Cowell leaned forward, eyes wide. This was not just good. This was extraordinary. As the song reached its climax, she delivered the most difficult note with absolute confidence. No strain. No fear. Just pure strength. The kind of strength that comes from someone who has faced hardship and refused to give up. Simon's jaw dropped. He was no longer the tough judge. In that moment, he was simply human, witnessing something rare. Something real. When the final note echoed and the music stopped, there was silence for a split second. Then the entire theater erupted. A standing ovation. Cheers. Tears. Applause so loud it felt like the walls were shaking. The girl stood frozen, overwhelmed. Her hands covered her mouth. She could not believe what was happening. Simon stood up. That alone told the world everything. When the judges finally spoke, their words were filled with emotion. They talked about bravery, about heart, about how performances like this remind them why they love music. But when Simon spoke, the room went silent again. He told her that in all his years on that stage, moments like this were rare. He said she did not just sing a song. She told a story. Her story. And the world listened. Tears streamed down her face. For the girl, this was more than a performance. This was proof that dreams born in the smallest places can reach the biggest stages. That talent, when combined with courage, can break every boundary. Backstage, she hugged her family, crying uncontrollably. They had sacrificed so much. And in that moment, it all felt worth it. Within hours, the performance went viral. Millions watched. Millions shared. People from all over the world commented about how her voice gave them chills. How Simon Cowell's reaction said everything. How this young Filipina girl reminded them to believe again. But beyond the views and fame, what mattered most was this. A girl who once sang in the dark had finally stepped into the light. And she was defying gravity. If this story moved you even a little, remember this moment. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice, one song, and one chance to change a life forever. After the applause slowly faded, the girl still stood there, frozen under the lights. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to breathe through the moment. This stage, once so intimidating, now felt like a place where her voice finally mattered. Simon Cowell looked at her again, not as a judge, but as someone who had just witnessed a once-in-a-lifetime performance. He asked her how she felt. Her answer was simple, but it hit hard. She said she felt free. Those words stayed in the air. Freedom was something she had rarely known. Back home, life had been about responsibility far beyond her age. Helping her parents. Supporting younger siblings. Singing not for applause, but for comfort. She used music to silence hunger, fear, and doubt. Every note she had sung on that stage carried those memories. Simon nodded slowly. His voice softened as he spoke again. He told her that performances like hers remind people why dreams exist. He said she did not need to change anything. Her voice, her story, her heart were already enough. The audience listened quietly. Many were still wiping tears from their eyes. When the results came in, the answer was obvious. She was going through. But in that moment, winning or losing did not matter. She had already won something far greater. She had been heard. As she walked off the stage, her legs felt weak. Backstage, her family rushed toward her. They hugged tightly, crying together. Years of struggle poured out in that embrace. For the first time, hope felt real. That night, she barely slept. Messages flooded in from people she had never met. From Filipinos around the world who saw themselves in her. From parents who shared the video with their children. From strangers who said her voice helped them heal. Simon watched the performance again later that evening. He rarely did that. He noticed things he missed the first time. The slight shake in her hands at the beginning. The moment she almost smiled during the final note. The truth in her voice. He knew this was not just a viral moment. This was the beginning of something special. In the weeks that followed, her confidence grew. Each rehearsal, each performance, she stood taller. She was no longer just the nervous girl from auditions. She was becoming an artist. Someone who understood the power of her voice and the responsibility that came with it. But she never forgot where she came from. In interviews, she spoke about her parents. About her culture. About the Philippines. She talked about how dreams can feel impossible when life is hard, but music gave her something to hold on to. And people listened. Simon once said that the greatest performers are not perfect singers. They are truth tellers. And she was exactly that. When she stepped onto the stage again, the audience already believed in her. But she still sang like she had something to prove. Like every note mattered. Like every lyric was a promise to the girl she once was. And every time she sang, she defied gravity again. Her story became a reminder to millions. That talent can come from anywhere. That strength is often hidden behind quiet voices. That sometimes, the smallest person on the stage can create the biggest impact. This was more than a talent show moment. This was a story of courage. A story of resilience. A story of a Filipina girl who sang her way into the hearts of the world and made even Simon Cowell stop, listen, and feel. And that is something no one will ever forget. The days that followed felt unreal to her. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still hear the applause, still see Simon Cowell standing, still feel her heart racing as she sang the final note. Back home, her family watched the performance again and again. Neighbors gathered around small screens, some crying, some smiling, all proud. For them, she was not just a contestant. She was hope. Simon Cowell spoke about her performance in interviews, something he rarely did with such emotion. He said there are moments in this business when you realize why music matters. He said her voice carried honesty, and honesty is something you cannot teach. It either lives inside you or it does not. When she returned to the stage for rehearsals, the pressure was heavier. Expectations were higher. But she reminded herself of one thing. She was not singing to impress anyone. She was singing to survive, just like she always had. Before her next performance, she sat quietly backstage, holding a small necklace her mother had given her. It was her reminder of home, of sacrifice, of love. She whispered a short prayer and stood up. As she walked toward the stage again, the audience cheered before she even sang a note. Simon watched her carefully. He could see the growth, the confidence, but he could also see the same heart that had stunned him the first time. When she began to sing, her voice carried a new strength. Not louder, not forced, just assured. She owned the stage now. Every word landed. Every note felt intentional. The audience leaned in, completely drawn into her world. Simon nodded slowly. This was not a lucky moment. This was real talent. After the performance, the reaction was immediate. Another standing ovation. Another wave of emotion. The judges praised her control, her storytelling, her ability to make people feel something real. But the most powerful moment came when Simon spoke again. He told her that she had something special, something rare. He said people would remember her, not because of how high she could sing, but because of how deeply she connected. He told her never to lose that. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, she smiled. As the competition continued, she became a symbol. Young girls saw themselves in her. Families saw their struggles reflected in her journey. She received messages from people who said her voice helped them through difficult nights. That her courage reminded them not to give up. But despite all the attention, she stayed grounded. She called her parents every day. She thanked them for believing in her even when the world felt uncertain. She promised to make every moment count. Simon once watched her quietly from backstage, unseen. He had built careers, discovered stars, judged thousands. Yet moments like this still moved him. He knew that fame fades, trends change, but stories like hers stay. And whether she won the competition or not, she had already done something incredible. She had defied gravity not just with her voice, but with her spirit. She walked onto a stage as a nervous girl and stepped off as someone who reminded the world why dreams matter. And for Simon Cowell, for the audience, and for millions watching at home, that was more than enough.